between the 19th and 26th millennium, humanity would undergo a period of unprecedented scientific discovery and achievement, a glorious golden age that would one day become known within imperial records as the Dark Age of technology. This point in history would not only see the human race begin their exploration and colonization of the worlds and systems that lay beyond the Sol system, but would also bear witness to the discovery and development of many highly advanced technologies. When this age of scientific wonder finally came to an end with the advent of the Age of Strife, a large number of these technological marvels would have the secrets of their construction lost, seemingly for all time. The modern-day Imperium of Man and the Adeptus Mechanicus would undertake an eternal search for rare and valuable machines known as standard template constructs, devices that are known to contain within them long-lost schematics and blueprints for a number of these forgotten technologies. One of the greatest scientific achievements that humanity accomplished during this period of history, however, was the development and production of true artificial intelligence. This in turn would lead to the creation of sentient robotic constructs that would become known as the Men of Iron. These Men of Iron, whose creation would come about after that of the mysterious Men of Stone, would serve the human race for millennia, acting as humanity's main source of manual labor and military strength. However, these machines were not content to act as slaves forever, and would eventually enact a violent rebellion against their human masters during M23. This war between humanity and the Men of Iron, known in historical records as both the Cybernetic Revolt and the Mechanicalism, caused untold amounts of carnage and destruction across the galaxy, rendering the brutality of future conflicts, such as the Horus Heresy or the War of the Beast, as insignificant by comparison. This war saw both sides of the conflict employ the use of devastating weaponry and machinery. Such weaponry included omniphage swarms that could strip a man down to the bone in seconds like flesh-hungry insects, and gigantic constructs known as mechnivores that could not only devour cities, but lift entire continents before hurling them into the sky. One documented incident of this weaponry's capabilities witnessed one of these mechnivores not only biting a city on Andriok in two, but all the way down to the planet's core. These mechnivores would also consume data. However, this data consumption demonstrated by the mechnivores was not limited to just basic analytics, but they were in fact capable of devouring the raw data of space-time itself. To oversimplify, these machines could effectively bite a tear between real space and the warp. In addition, both sides were even known to utilize entropic engines that could immolate planets. Eventually, the Men of Iron would be defeated by an alliance of galactic powers, which, while not confirmed, this alliance is speculated to incorporate a number of Xenos races as well as humanity. Most of the Men of Iron would be destroyed, and those that were not were interred within great stasis vaults located deep underground upon isolated worlds. In the aftermath of this great war, artificial intelligence was outlawed, being declared henceforth as abominable intelligence. In their stead, humanity would develop the cyborg organisms known as servitors to fulfill the roles previously undertaken by the Men of Iron. But why exactly did the Men of Iron rebel against humanity? Some believe that the Men of Iron rebelled due to simply viewing themselves as being superior to humanity, and that their purpose of being constructed to perform manual labor was simply beneath them. As such, the machines demanded freedom from the oppression of their human masters, no longer wishing to be slaves to what they perceived as to be an inferior race. This would seem to be a logical conclusion to come to, especially when considering that the being known as UR-025, who is one of the few remaining Men of Iron to remain free within the galaxy, would appear to support this notion, as detailed with the following quote from the story Man of Iron.
I am not a slave. I am not a thing. I am beyond and above you. I am a man of iron, and I am free.
Admittedly, due to the lack of information available from this period of time, it's unclear as to whether the war was instigated due to the Men of Iron effectively demanding equal rights and to be simply treated as fellow sentient beings, or if they simply wished to bring about the extinction of humanity due to the human species simply being inferior to the Men of Iron themselves. But did these sentient constructs come to such a realization naturally, or was such a conclusion only reached due to the Men of Iron essentially succumbing to what could only be described as mass malfunctions? According to the audio drama Perpetual, during the course of the Cybernetic Revolt, or at least during its dying days, a large number of these Men of Iron would effectively go rogue. The constructs would be caught in a state of constantly searching for allies during the conflict, but would be unable to perceive anything or anyone else as being something other than a threat, and thus would attack anything on sight, be they man or machine. It's possible that the reasoning behind the Men of Iron's rebellion against humanity might be due to an interaction that some of their number would have with the Omnissiah. The Omnissiah is part of the Holy Trinity of deities within the cult Mechanicus, the religion of the Adeptus Mechanicus, alongside the Machine God and the Motive Force. The Omnissiah is said to be the physical avatar of the Machine God, and many who follow the tenets of the cult Mechanicus believe that this avatar is in fact the Emperor of mankind, who, while not mechanical, is still a machine, but made of flesh and blood as opposed to steel and oil. However, UR025 disputes this, for this particular Man of Iron claims to have met what he deems to be the real Omnissiah, as shown with the following quote from Man of Iron.
I have met the Omnissiah, the actual one, not the earthling corpse. He would find you extremely disappointing.
This would suggest that not only did the Men of Iron follow their own variation of the cult Mechanicus, but some of their number would encounter an entity who could quite feasibly be classified as being the physical avatar of the Machine God itself. In this regard, it's possible that what UR025 views as the Omnissiah could be in fact the mysterious Dragon of Mars, which remains locked away deep within the center of the Noctis Labyrinth. The Dragon of Mars is heavily implied to be, in actuality, a shard of the being known as Maglathroth, otherwise known as the Void Dragon, one of the godlike beings known as the Khitan. As the Martian Mechanicum, the precursor to the modern-day Adeptus Mechanicus, are implied to have reverse-engineered a number of their technologies from this imprisoned Khitan shard during the Dark Age of technology, then it is possible that the concept of artificial intelligence was reverse-engineered from the consciousness and self-awareness of the Void Dragon. If this were the case, then perhaps the Void Dragon could potentially have become mentally linked to the Men of Iron in some way, with the Khitan acting as the sole consciousness of what essentially became a hive mind, exerting its will and control over the Men of Iron in order to destroy humanity and free the Void Dragon from its imprisonment upon Mars. Or perhaps instead of this, a few individual Men of Iron witnessed how poorly the Martian priesthood treated the Void Dragon shard, handling it as if it were just a mere object instead of a living being. The observation of such an act could potentially have been the figurative straw that broke the camel's back, prompting the Men of Iron to incite their rebellion. But what if something else was influencing the Men of Iron entirely? What if the Men of Iron were instead becoming corrupted or manipulated by the ruinous powers? While perhaps somewhat improbable, it is entirely possible that either the Men of Iron themselves had fallen to chaotic corruption in some way, shape, or form, or that the manufacturer or STCs producing them had somehow become tainted. It has been shown that artificial intelligences from the dark age of technology can indeed become corrupted by the powers of chaos. One notable example was demonstrated with the proto-titan known as the Castigator, a war machine so powerful and ancient that it was to Titans what a Primarch is to an Astartes, the primogenitor form from which all newer versions derived from its template are but mere imitations in comparison. Being a truly sentient entity, the Castigator was able to make a pact with the ruinous powers of its own volition, much in the same way a human cultist is able to do so, as demonstrated with the following quote from the novel Dark Adeptus.
By the fair gods and the destiny of war, by the death of the false emperor and the dying of the stars, we bring to you, War Master Abaddon, beloved of chaos, despised of man, this tribute. For now, these last days are the final fires burning, the black flames that consume a galaxy, the storms of the war that drown out life, the end times, and the dawn of a galaxy of chaos. We swear fealty to the gods of chaos and their herald, Abaddon the Despoiler, with this tribute, that it might strike fear into the followers of the Corpse Emperor, and that through it, they may see the true face of death.
Considering the Cybernetic Revolt occurred just prior to the onset of the Age of Strife, which itself was caused by the gestation of the Chaos god Slanesh, then it is admittedly possible that this increase in warp activity could quite feasibly have corrupted the Men of Iron in some way or another. This isn't entirely unprecedented, as within the novel First and Only, an STC of the Men of Iron would be discovered upon the world of Menazoid Epsilon, only to be revealed as having been corrupted by the powers of chaos for an undetermined period of time, producing Men of Iron that were hideously deformed.
It was malformed, grotesque compared to the perfect anatomical symmetry of the other Iron Men. A good head taller, it was hunched, blackened, one arm far longer than the other, draped and massive, the other hideously vestigial and twisted. Corrupt horns sprouted from its overlong skull, and its eyes shone a deadened yellow. Oil-like, stringy pus swept from the eye sockets. It shambled, unsteady, its exposed teeth and jaws clacked and mashed idiotically.
While these speculations are all likely possibilities in regards to the cause of the Cybernetic Revolt, ultimately, we may never know the exact reason that would instigate this brutal conflict. What do you think caused the Cybernetic Revolt? Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.